Hey, let's bark about paper furries. Welcome to Let's Bark, basically a let's talk within the furry fandom. So if you've been interacting with the furry fandom at all lately, specifically on TikTok, you would have heard all the drama surrounding paper furries. What are paper furries? Well, basically, they're fursuit makers that make their craft out of paper. And lately, they've been getting so much hate, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So right now, the furry fandom is very split on if paper masks are okay. Everyone's opinion is valid, but it's gotten to a point where people are just spewing hate for no real good reason. Like I said in my last video, fursuits aren't literally a fur suit. Well, at least they don't have to be. A fursuit is a broad umbrella term for any cosplay of your persona. Like, imagine if your persona was a lizard. Yes, I know some people technically call them scalies, but it's still part of the furry fandom. Just because you're not literally using fur doesn't mean it's not a fursuit. I know it literally has the word fur in it, but it really is just a broad term. Same with dino masks, pup masks. A fursuit is just an expression of your character. But that's not fully what we're going to be talking about today. It seems like it's become a trend to pick on these particular fursuiters. And sure, it may be funny to some of us, but for the group it's targeting, it can be pretty hurtful. And this is coming from someone that's never owned a paper fursuit. So like last time, I'm going to be reading off of my iPad, so I will have to break the magic a little bit. You'll probably see my paws getting progressively messier and messier as I rip them on and off. But I have taken some loose notes on what I wanted to talk about today. So the biggest topic I hear revolving around paper fursuits is they mold. And I'm not going to sit here and deny that. I know they can mold. The combination of sweat and moisture from your breath going on paper all the time, then being stored in possibly not the right conditions, can obviously lead to mold. But fursuits can mold as well. And sure, maybe paper may mold faster, but the thing is, with these guys, you won't be able to see the mold for a long time. These are made with foam, fur, and other materials. And we sweat on them constantly, probably more than those who do in paper fursuits. But what I'm trying to say is all the factors that make a paper fursuit mold go for regular fursuits as well. And since this is so covered up with fur and inner lining, if your suit has that, it is a lot harder to spot right away. For all I know, this is a walking petri dish. My point is, with paper fursuits, it'll be a lot easier to spot when it starts to mold. And when that happens, you can replace it much easier than a fursuit head. Well, maybe not necessarily easier, it kind of depends on your skill level, because working with paper is a whole new skill to learn in of itself. But it is cheaper, and the items are way more readily available. If your fursuit starts falling apart or molding, you're either going to have to find another maker or wait for your last maker to open up a slot, or if you make it yourself as well. And then you or they have to wait for all the materials to ship in. Then you have to strip the whole thing, replace whatever you need to, in some cases the whole thing. But with paper fursuits, once you see the mold, you can get on it right away. And since it's not so covered with other materials, you may only need to replace a few small parts of it. And like I said, the materials are way more readily available. You might not have to wait for a whole bunch of shipments to come in. And since paper fursuits are a lot more breathable, there's a lot less sweat coming in. Especially for those paper suiters who line it with tape and even more balaclava underneath. I'm not saying it's never going to mold if you do this, but there are ways to make paper fursuits last a lot longer. Honestly, sometimes when I see comments about mold and whatnot, I honestly feel like it's kind of disguised hate within our own community. And don't get me wrong, I know some of you guys are genuinely worried about their health, and it's okay to be nice about it. But trust me, paper furries have heard that over and over again. And when their own community keeps telling them that their suit is going to mold, they're going to question the quality of their creations and maybe feel bad about themselves. And I think paper fursuits are a great alternative to regular fursuits as long as you take care of it and know when it's ready to be replaced. Not everyone can afford to make or buy a fursuit, especially minors, which are the majority of paper furries as far as I've seen. Again, I'm not saying you're in the wrong if you've told someone that their fursuit might mold because it's made out of paper. Keep in mind when you say stuff like this, you should be as polite about it as possible. And building off of that, a new trend that I've seen going around is people making fun of paper furries for complaining. And to that I say, if you were in their shoes, an entire fandom that you're a part of and supposed to be accepted in was putting you down for your creation not being good enough, wouldn't your feelings be hurt too? It's okay for people want to vent about their frustrations. And really, they should be complaining so they get heard. Honestly, I'm surprised I haven't seen anyone sit down and make a YouTube video about this yet. Because it's not hurting you. What they're talking about is something that's hurting them. So there's no reason to put them down for it more. I know if I spent weeks making a mask I was incredibly proud of, just for people to go in my comments and say, it's gonna mold, oh that's low quality, oh it's gonna rip, or one I see comment, one drop of water and it's done. That would hurt, and I would want to vent those frustrations to my community. That brings me to my next point. People always say, oh, what's the point of putting in all the work if it's not gonna last long? This might surprise you, but no fursuit lasts forever. Have you ever heard of the term retired fursuit? That happens when over time the fursuit gets worn down, too dirty to clean, blah blah blah, and people will take the suit and put it to the side. Sure, suits last a lot longer than paper ones, but it's still a lot of work and money going into something that isn't gonna be around forever. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but once a fursuit starts breaking down, you can make repairs. But like I said, it's a lot harder, a lot of work goes into it, it's very expensive. And sometimes people retire a suit and just put it completely to the side, like the original Frenzy here. In fact, I'm actually remaking her again right here, mostly because I'm not really as connected to this character since I added so many colors like the orange and stuff. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's based on my Animal Jam character. I just want to bring the Animal Jam-esque part of it back. So on one hand, I do just want to redesign it again. But also, this suit isn't even that old and there's already so many problems with it. And right now, I'm just waiting on the funds to be able to validate buying all the materials for it. But like I said, with paper, it's a lot cheaper, easily available. One of the colors I use for this suit, I can't find anywhere online anymore. But with paper, sure, maybe your store will go out of stock of a certain color. But with fur, believe it or not, there's some colors that just don't exist. Some pastels are really hard to find. Sometimes you'll order a shade you really like and it'll come and it's not quite right. Things like that, but it is a lot easier to find what you need and cheaper for a paper fursuit. And no, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that there are a lot of reasons someone would want to make a paper fursuit. Now this one is a bit of a personal dilemma someone is going through, but there is a creator that was trying to sell their paper fursuits, which is amazing. Their particular paper fursuits are great. They're 3D, they honestly look just like a regular fursuit head. In so much detail. Like honestly, I was so impressed. And they were gonna sell commissions for them for a little over $100. And in my opinion, that's a fair price. It's art, it takes work. But there were a lot of people that were outrageously upset about this price. And sure, it may not be everyone's cup of tea to pay over $100 for something made out of paper. That's fine, that's you. You don't have to buy it. But there are people that will. And if you don't like the prices, then just scroll. People's defense for this is it's just paper, it's not that expensive. And yeah, sure, it's not. But fursuits already go for thousands. And sometimes not even the full body. I've seen fursuit heads go for thousands. And as a fursuit maker, I can say, yes, the materials are expensive, don't get me wrong. But this entire bodysuit maybe cost me roughly $700, $800. Can't say for every maker, but I'd say for material costs, that's pretty average. You won't make any money if you sell your creations based on your material costs. Now you're probably wondering, what's my point? Now with paper fursuits, sure it may be cheap to make, but I've heard paper furries say it can take weeks to make their heads. And really depending on the maker, that's not too far off of how long it takes to make a fursuit head depending how long you're working on it for each day. And even if the paper furries aren't working on it constantly throughout that week, that is still a lot of work. Like hours and hours of work. If someone was selling their paper fursuit head that they spent weeks on, they are still making far under minimum wage. Like traditional fursuits, we're not charging only what we spent on material. We're charging on the time, the care, the labor. All of that goes into paper suits as well. Really, I think that is a sweet price. Like not even a fraction of the cost of a fursuit for something that looks amazing still. And yeah, I know it won't last forever. Neither do these, as I said. It all depends how you take care of it, how you store it, how rough you are with it when it's on. Now you might say, but people are buying something that they may not know is risky. And to that I say, as long as the maker is saying the risks when they buy it and making it clear that it probably won't last forever, it's not an issue. If someone buys something knowing all the risks, then that's not on the person making it. I've also heard people talking about the poor quality of them. Most paper fursuit makers aren't just using loose leaf notebook paper. You can use construction paper, cardstock, and many even put tape on the layers to make sure it's waterproof and lasts longer. Point being, the better the materials, the better quality it will be. Take my feet paws for example. This purple was pretty decent quality, and I'm not sure how well it'll show on camera, but you don't really see many shave marks. You can see the thread a little bit, but that's more on me doing a poor shave job. But then on my yellow one, it is all patchy. You can see the foam through it, the thread is very visibly poking through. There's spots where it's just completely bald. And that's because the yellow is not as good quality as the rest of this suit. So what I'm basically saying here is, if you get the right materials, you can make a high quality suit, or any craft for that matter. And even then, you don't have to get the most top-notch materials to make a great project. I've seen people make the best things out of the littlest materials. Now the next one may be a little deep, but us as a full community, I feel like we have a demand for a standardized way of fursuits and how they're supposed to be. Sometimes we may forget that these are handmade pieces of art. Well, not necessarily forget, but assume everyone should know exactly what they're doing, should go along one path on how to make it, that this and that is wrong and that and this are right. But we have to remember that these are individual pieces of art. There is no wrong or right way to make a fursuit. Tutorials are just guidelines of what to do and how to get you started. It's not a step-by-step checklist of what you have to do. It's just to give new fursuit makers a little push in the right direction. And really, they don't even have to go based on what big, popular fursuit makers are doing. Find their own ways to achieve what they want. And yes, you should take advice here and there, but don't ever let anyone tell you that you're doing something wrong. Because at the end of the day, it's art, your art. And that is up to you as the artist to make your project how you want it to be. Fursuit making tutorials are great, but the steps they're using in materials are just suggestions to get you on the right track. I mean, heck, if you really want to, you can use t-shirts as the fur. Point being, it is your craft, you make it how you want it to be. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to making fursuits. There was a time where fursuit making tutorials didn't even exist, and everyone just had to figure it out on their own. And let me just say, the old-timey fursuits are so amazing. And the way the fandom has grown in terms of style is just so outstanding. And that happened from people experimenting on their own with trial and error. Now, before this video ends, I decided I wanted to do a little experiment. I'm going to be taking some commonly used fursuit materials and paper. I know this is gross, but I'm going to sweat on it, I'm going to breathe on it, anything that a regular fursuit goes through. And I'm going to see how long each one takes to get all nasty. Now, of course, I don't have time to do that right now because nothing's going to get all moldy right away. But once the experiment is over, it'll be down on my TikTok right there. And I'm really curious to see how it goes. Anyway guys, let me know, did you like this type of video? And if so, what should I talk about next? Because honestly, I don't have many more ideas, so please help me. I'm pretty new to the discussion type of YouTube video scene. So yeah, let me know what type of videos you'd like to see next, and leave down your thoughts and comments below. And after watching this, go and give some paper furries some love. They really, really need it. because this trend of hating them is just out of control. So without further ado, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Bye guys!